Walking is better than running for sustainable fat loss. Gonna ruffle a few feathers here, but hear me out. We're going to go through the pros and the cons of both running and walking to see which is going to suit you better. So when it comes to walking, you preferentially burn fat as a fuel source. When you're running, you preferentially burn glycogen as a fuel source. Now that doesn't make a Scooby-Doo of a difference when it comes to burning body fat, even though in the name, preferentially burn fat. Why? Because when you burn body fat earlier in the day, your body will then preferentially burn glycogen later in the day. And when you preferentially burn glycogen earlier in the day, your body will switch to burning body fat later in the day. What dictates whether you sustain your body weight, gain body weight, or lose body weight is if you're in a calorie deficit, a calorie maintenance, or calorie surplus. So you can't trick your body in that sense. But generally speaking, you have a lower hunger response after doing walking as exercise. When you go running, you may have felt this in the past yourself, any sort of high intensity exercise, afterwards you can be starving, not only for an hour or 2 hours, but for the rest of the day. Why that is because you burn up your carbohydrates, blood sugars drop, you feel super hungry afterwards, or you can feel super hungry afterwards. It doesn't happen all of the time. But walking, for sure, has a lower hunger response. So on the whole, when you're trying to stay consistent with a fat loss diet, it is easier when you're using walking as your preferred cardiovascular exercise. Walking is a low skill. There's not much to learn when it comes to walking. Well, most of us have been walking for a long time. And with that, you have a low risk of injury. Whereas a lot of us stop running at the age of 12, maybe after college if you've been playing some sports. And what often happens is, it's like, right, I'm going to get into running. So throw on the running shoes after 5 years, you go out, apparently running starts at doing a 5K, and you injure yourself. You run to fatigue, sore legs, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, all of this sort of stuff. That is because running is a skill. You have to learn how to run. You can't just do it in a week or two. It takes months and months and months to become great at running. So, lower barrier to entry when it comes to walking. It's a low skill, we know how to do it, and with that, it's super easy to perform. You can go out for a walk between meetings, after a meal, late in the evening. You don't have to change into runners, shorts, get a shower afterwards. It's super easy to do. And because of that, you can consistently increase your step count or your walking to equate to quite a lot of actual cardiovascular exercise by the end of the day. In contrast with running, you almost have to plan it. There's a commitment there. You've got to have your running shoes, you've got to have your shorts, you have to be able to have a shower afterwards, for the most of us. And that just means it's not as easy to slip in with your day. And as we all know, consistency is the key to fat loss. The one con I could come up with for walking is that you burn less calories per minute. Now, it's not really a con, because you can walk for longer than you can run. So yes, if you're tight for time, you like running, you're fit, you have a good gait, you know what you're doing, you can dart out, get a 20-minute run done to really up your step count for the day. But for most of us, it's not practical. And the cost of spending that extra 20, 30, 40 minutes over the course of the day walking far outweighs the benefit of trying to get it done in 20 minutes. And when it comes to running, you're burning glycogen, carbohydrate. As I said, it doesn't matter that when you're walking, you're burning fat, or when you're doing running, you're burning glycogen. At the end of the day, it's calorie balance. Are you burning more than you are consuming? If the answer is yes, you are losing body fat. But because you're burning glycogen as your primary fuel source, you can feel a lot more hungry, which we're going to go through now. Another pro to running is that you are burning more calories per minute. Doesn't really make that much of a difference over the course of days, weeks, and months. Not really. You do obviously tax your heart quite a lot more, increase your VO2 max. That comes with its own benefits. But we're talking optimal versus applicable. What can you actually sustain? For a lot of people, there's a massive enjoyment factor when it comes to running. You hit that runner's high, you feel $1 million afterwards. And quite often, if you go out for a run, you don't want to the bollocks the next day or even later that day because you put in the work and your mindset's right. So if you enjoy running, please, I am not telling you not to run. If you like to do it, you're fit, you're not injured, and you get this massive surge of dopamine and serotonin afterwards, by all means, absolutely go for it. There are a couple of cons. So there's a higher fatigue and a higher risk of injury if you don't know how to run and you run to fatigue. Same with anything. If you do something in a fatigue state, you are not going to be moving well, whether that's strength training or cardiovascular exercise. But the fatigue aspect is interesting. If you are doing a couple of days worth of strength training, say 3 or 4 days worth of strength training, and you're also throwing in some higher intensity runs, those runs are adding into your fatigue bucket, and they very well may have an impact on your strength training. So if you're sports focused, if the gym is the number one priority, or you are super stressed out at the moment just from everyday life, adding more higher intense running maybe isn't the solution there. As mentioned, there's a higher commitment cost. You got to have your runners there. You have to know the time that you're going out. There has to be a shower afterwards, I hope. And you have a higher hunger response. So that's something you have to battle on a day-to-day basis. Not everybody gets this hunger response, but if you do, you're just more hungry throughout the day. For every unit of time, you are slightly more hungry. And for all of us, there's a willpower aspect here. I mean, if you are starving throughout the day, there comes a time where you're going to give in. So is the couple of 100 calories you burnt running any better than you actually just not eating that food or burning it off going walking? Maybe not. So this is it. You can come to your own conclusion on what you feel is better for fat loss. And for every single person watching this, it's going to be different. But if you don't like running, if you are not fit, if you are very overweight, if you don't know how to run, or you're super stressed out, it might not be a good idea for you. If you're interested in getting into running, remember, running does not start at a 5K or a 3 mile. You go out, you run till you start to become a little bit more fatigued and then you stop. Don't run in a fatigued state and build it up over time. If that's 200 meters, that's 200 meters more than you've been doing. Build it up over time. And listen, if you're like a gazelle, you absolutely love running, fire ahead. Running is amazing for your health if you like it and if you're good at it. But be aware, if your goal is optimal strength training, performance and recovery, cardiovascular exercise at a high intensity, aka running, may have an impact. Particularly if you're in a fat loss phase, you're not well fueled, and if you have high levels of stress. So just be careful when you implement it. Be strategic, keep it away from your strength training sessions so you have a chance to recover. That's all for this one. Any questions or queries you may have, please drop me a message.